cross-platform now. You've got to be able to operate in different areas.
Yeah.
The whole thing with video and film.
Well, we've had to drag you away from video cameras just to speak. You're excited about.
Well, now every photographer is suddenly a filmmaker as well. I mean, as it happens, I've made a documentary film over the last 6 years, which was a real uphill struggle, but I finished it in the end. But I think it's more and more important to have a foot in that world as well as a photographer.
I'd agree with you. Thank you so much for answering all the questions. I think it would be a good idea now if we can offer it open to if anybody has any questions for Zed or anything in particular they'd like to comment on anything we've been talking about. I'm afraid we don't have a microphone to pass around, so if you shout, I will relay your questions to Zed so that everybody else here can hear as well. Are there any questions?
Do you want to hand you this? Then you don't have to repeat it.
Yeah, really simply, how you manage to juggle both documentary and commercial photography.
How do you sort of juggle it in your mind?
I personally have an issue with the whole but I want to do something that's going to make a difference. How do you personally manage to make that decision to accept? I'm going to take this advert from the documents and put that money something else, something useful.
I mean, number one, you've got to work out. I mean, I've turned down commercial jobs because they conflict with my moral beliefs. So, I mean, you might get a job offered to you. I mean, for instance, like a cigarette advertising thing came my way. I mean, whatever, cigarettes, people know the risks now, so it's not a big deal, but they were selling cigarettes in the developing world, and it was just really unsavoury. So I didn't do that. And that was a sort of, you think of all the money, but you don't do it. So let's exclude things that are morally objectionable, and that's just a personal decision, irrespective of wanting to be a documentary photographer. But then the other hard thing is, how do you, I mean, if you want to work in the commercial world, it's not just like you can just say, okay, I'll take commercial jobs now. You still have to work very hard in that area and get known and seen and everything else. So it's where you put your energy that's the problem, and you're only one person. So all you can do really is sort of try and navigate a path. I mean, I had a couple of years where I did a lot of corporate work. I got sick of having no money, and I wanted to, buy a house and stuff like that, do things that normal people do.
I was going to say, how did the wife and kids deal with you disappearing?
Well,
sorry, there's no food on the table this morning.
Yeah,
investing in a book.
I didn't go off for months at a time. I always tried to sort of not lose myself. I mean, I met people who were real sort of documentary photographers in the old sense, who were all sort of, you meet them in Cambodia or something, and they're just. That's where they are. They can never come home. They're lost souls. They're like something out of a film. So I always tried not to be that, and didn't really find that very attractive. And Don McCullum was a famous British documentary photographer, who my lecturer at college was a great fan of Don McCullum, and really exposed his work to us as students. So subsequently, I would say he was to some degree an influence. But I remember reading his autobiography. And at the end of it, the last page says something like, as I sit here alone with my ghosts, I realised that I waded through other people's misery, but I never even was aware of my own. And it was relevant to other things. He talked about a wife that had died, and family issues. And I remember thinking, okay, I'll be a bit careful, wary about what you do with your life. And at the end of the day, photography is very important, but you can't. It's easy to get obsessed with photographing other people and forget about yourself as well, I think. But that's another interesting thing that is happening, is that photography, because it's sort of crossing over into the art world, and you've got this documentary and art photography, it's more personal. The work that's being done is increasingly personal, and this idea of being a sort of an objective observer has changed. In a way, that's become a bit of an old-fashioned idea. I think because there's more and more sort of TV news and rolling news and all of that, it's less point in being a documentary photographer just photographing things, and there's more point having a very personal take on something, or photographing your own family, or there's more interesting work happening, I think, which is really stepped out of the traditional reportage mould, and it's almost like the real reportage, the real documentary work is being done by news agencies, like Reuters and people like that, and because of digital it's so fast. Unless you are one of those animals who are out there with the right equipment, filing your work, doing that, there's just no point even attempting to do it. So you've either got to go that way, which is not a bad living, if that's the sort of photographer you want to be, I think those people get paid reasonably well, or you have to sort of go much more sort of personal. And also, the technology of photography through digital has become, you could argue it's become easier to take a good picture, a picture that's in focus, well exposed. So it's harder to stand out from the crowd. So your work has to say something, or it's got to have a point. I'm not really answering your question very well.
I'm quite enjoying it though.
The corporate work, for me, the only work I've got from advertising in the corporate world, it was not as a result of me trying to take shiny, pretty pictures that suited them. It was by getting work published and having an exhibition or whatever where they would see it and get interested in it. And advertising agencies like to use photographers. They're actually just bored and they hate what they're doing, and they think, I want to work with a photographer I like or respect, or I like that project, let's get him to shoot this. And so there's that weird crossover that can happen without you having to change the style of your work. It doesn't mean that while you're doing the job, you're not thinking, this is bullshit, or the worst thing about doing commercial work actually is they tie you down for a couple of weeks, and then if something crops up that you want to be doing, you can't do it. So it's more a problem, for me it's a problem just to schedule. Mentally I can divide the two without any problem. I just accept that they're different things. And it's like